All right, we got a jam-packed morning ahead of us here. Um, Obviously, there was a bunch of news that came out last week over the weekend that I definitely want to talk about. We had a new movie that came out, Challengers, and we're definitely going to look into how it affected the box office over the weekend. So that's something that we do here every Monday. We kind of break down the weekend box office. So we're going to check all that stuff out. But this morning, we are also treated once again. It's funny how sometimes these things happen where I go live and then something drops in the morning. And we got a new teaser trailer for the upcoming live action Mufasa movie. So if you didn't know, I guess the live action Lion King movie did well enough that they decided to do a follow up. And this time we're not dealing with a sequel. So we're not getting like what was the original Lion King animated movie sequel, Lion King and a Half or something like that, that kind of follows Simba's journey. And I think it also it was one of those that we followed, I guess, his kid or something. It was like one of those unofficial direct to DVD, direct to video sequels that Disney was doing a lot during that time. You know, that's when we got Aladdin 2, right? Um, what's up, PQ in the house? There was Lion King 2 and then one and a half. Yeah, that's it. You're right. Yeah. So naturally you would think that that would be the route that they were going to take here with the live action stuff. But no, what they decided to do is they're going to go backwards. And now we're getting a prequel. And this is going to be basically the story of his dad, Mufasa, him as a kid growing up, and I guess his journey to becoming the king, right? So that's what they decided to do here. The movie itself, I believe, is directed by Barry Jenkins, who is overly excited for this movie, highly promoting it. They were teased. They teased the movie theater industry with footage during CinemaCon, uh, which took place a couple of weeks ago. So it was just a matter of time before the trailer was going to be finally released to the public, and this is the day. I think it also debuted on Good Morning America, which is interesting and something that I'm not surprised because I believe Morning America is ABC, which is owned by Disney. So it's like the perfect outlet for them to debut something like this. PQ saying Lion King 2 was about his daughter and Scar's kid. Oh, see, that's interesting. Not something I would be interested in, but again, that's what they did a lot of back then, where they did a lot of those direct to video, direct to DVD sequels. I believe it was the Aladdin one was the one that spearheaded the whole thing like that, and they figured out that these movies that I think they were originally planning to put out in theaters, they pivoted and they said, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. Why don't we just do direct to video? And it worked like gangbusters for them. These videos sold a lot. The rentals were insane when these came out. So they found themselves a nice niche there where they were able to do these direct to video stuff. Now with the Disney Plus platform, they could do anything that they wanted to because they could just go ahead and just release whatever they feel like on Disney Plus if they feel like a theatrical run just wouldn't warrant any attention with those things. PQ saying Third Aladdin was the best because Robin came back. Oh, I didn't even know that. That's awesome. Yeah, see, I didn't watch any of those things because I there was something about them that I felt that it felt off to me in a way. Um, you could tell like the animation style was not they weren't working with the top tier animated teams. They were definitely working with the backup crew, crews C, D, E, and F, right? Maybe they borrowed some of the B crew in there, but you could tell that something was off when it came to those direct to video stuff. And I think at that time too, I was just not a huge Disney guy. I was, I guess, a little older too. So that whole renaissance of Disney that started with Beauty and the Beast, I just was not into that. So I never watched Beauty and the Beast originally. I never watched The Lion King originally. I never watched Aladdin. I think Little Mermaid I only saw on video at my when I was visiting my niece for a summer, and that's the first time I saw the Little Mermaid there. So a lot of these movies I didn't really see until later on, much later on. And I was like, "Oh yeah, these are good. Yeah, I could see why this was a big thing." So it was interesting that being the big movie guy that I am, that I totally missed that whole renaissance of Disney, with their animated movies and all. So, but there are a lot of people who grew up with these things, and that's why these live action adaptations have been very interesting. I would say that the majority of them have been huge misses. I think the only decent live action adaptations for the Disney movies have been the very first Cinderella. Well done, I thought. Very, very well done. And quite possibly, I will say, not really an adaptation, but more of a take on a Disney villain, and that is Cruella. I thought Cruella was brilliantly done, in my opinion. Um, and then the rest were just kind of meh. The original Lion King live action adaptation, I felt so bored watching. I fell asleep several times throughout because there was nothing new for me. It was just a complete, exact kind of line for line, scene to scene copy of the animated movie, and it didn't really add anything new. Plus, when it comes to animals, it's hard to believe emotion when the animals cannot emote. Animals don't have those facial expressions like humans do. And when it comes to animated form, you could kind of break that whole concept by, cartoonifying the faces of the animals, making them react and emote a little bit better. The eyebrows raise up, certain facial expressions can be done. They didn't do any of that stuff with the live action movie. And I felt a lot of the emotional beats fell flat. So I didn't really hold it in high regards. The live action Jungle Book I thought was pretty decent. I thought that was a lot of fun. PQ likes Beauty and the Beast. I thought it was okay. Um, I thought Emma Watson, even though I like her as an actress, I didn't feel like she was Belle. She felt kind of flat for me too. So I mean, there are people who feel certain ways for the live action and whatever, but here we are. Now we're getting Mufasa, the next live action Disney film here. This is currently in the works along with the live action Moana movie that they're working on right now. But here's our first look at Mufasa, the Lion King live action teaser trailer. So let's check this out here. First time I'm seeing it, so it's my first time reacting to it. Let's go. All right.
This
Or there's
story
Rafiki.
begins far beyond the mountains and the shadows. On the other side of the light.
Is that Morgan Freeman? Got narrating?
A lion was born without a drop of nobility in his blood.
He looks just like Simba. Oh, raindrop! Oh, it's my future.
Who would change our lives forever. Mufasa.
I don't know. Just me or it just looks like Lion King.
Shake.
Nice to see.
Destiny awaits you.
They're gonna have to do something different. And I'm sure they're gonna explore how him and Scar enemies. Okay. Is that it, really? Alright, let's look at this voice cast. Because that's usually what they hope drives attendance for these movies. Alright, so you got Aaron Pierre, don't know him. Kelvin Harrison Jr., all right. John Connie. Seth Rogen. I guess Seth Rogen is going to be reprising his role as, I guess Pumbaa's gonna be in this. I mean, I don't know the lore of Lion King, but what is what it is. Billy Eichner, Donald Glover, Mads Mikkelsen, and Thandie Newton joins the voice cast here. Oh, and introducing. Wait, hold on. Introducing, of course, nepotism at its best. Blue Ivy Carter is voicing something or someone in this movie with Beyonce because Beyonce was in the live action Lion King. And okay. Yeah, no big surprise here. Here we go. Another child of a famous couple is going to get ruined by Hollywood. Good job. Good job, y'all. Nepotism at its best. And of course, we have Lin Manuel Miranda coming back to ruin things. I'm just kidding. Again, if you follow me and you've known me long enough, I am just very tired of Lin Manuel. The Miranda effect, as I call it. So, I look. It looks like The Lion King. That's what it looks like to me. It doesn't look like anything different. It again, we were never privy to the lore of Mufasa, his backstory. Um, but we are now gonna get it. We're gonna be. I guess we're gonna see the seeds being sown as to how the kingdom was the way it was when we were introduced to it the first time in The Lion King, and how Mufasa rose into prominence. I'm sure we're going to get the initial introductions to such beloved characters like Pumbaa, and I'm sure we're going to explore the conflict between him and Scar and why that's a big deal, um, and how Rafiki like fits into all of this. Is this a necessary movie? No. Is any movie necessary? No. But it's one of those things where once again they're going to hand feed us and force feed us a lore that maybe we don't really care about. But Barry Jenkins, like I said, he's very high on this movie. He feels that this movie is going to be very emotional. It's going to have a great story behind it. So we shall see. We shall see. But there are certain things that need to be changed in order for someone like myself to really like it. And they're going to have to figure out a way to just break the wall of reality and animate the emotional features of the animals to show really emotion. They're going to have to find a way to do that. And I remember, maybe I'm wrong, but there was a time when when the first Lion King came out, the live action one, somebody on YouTube decided to just animate the faces a little bit more to add those emotions, creating like eyebrows being raised and maybe having the mouths do kind of like human like emotion and reactions. And it looked so much better. It really did. So hopefully they learned a lesson from that. We didn't get to see a lot or enough here to really judge that for now. But at the end of the day, it just looks like another Lion King movie. So I don't know what difference it's going to be, but it's there, and it's going to be coming soon. So well, I guess we'll check it out when it comes out in was it August when this movie comes out? December. Oh, it's going to be a holiday film. All right, so this movie is going to do well. It's going to because it's the perfect time. December 20. That's the week of Christmas. You're going to have tons of families going out to watch this. This is going to be the family movie that everyone's going to watch during the holidays. So if it's going to do well, it's going to be mainly because of that. And then we'll see how long it lasts or what the reception is going to be like. But for me, it just looks like another Lion King movie. That's it. But I'm curious what you all think there. So definitely let me know in the comments there. PQ Nepo again. Alexander Hamilfossa. Miranda. It's nice to see that he's still working with Disney. I think he took a little break for some of their projects recently, but yeah, that's what it is. So Lion King, Mufasa. I really don't care. To be honest with you, if you were to ask me if I am excited to watch this movie, I'll be like, no, not really. I don't care. I don't think we need to know Mufasa's upbringing and his whole lore there. But hey, they're doing what they can, and then we'll see what happens. So, but like I said, I'm sure it's going to do really well at the box office because it is going to be the holiday movie of the year. I'm sure. I'm sure of it. So, speaking of box office, I think now is the perfect time to go into the box office breakdown for this past weekend. So let's go ahead and do that. This is the portion of Monday's show where I break down the weekend box office and all the like, and we discuss who won, who did well, and who flopped, if there were any kind of flop. So, as always, I used the numbers.com to go over all of the weekend numbers, box office numbers, and all that. So let me go ahead and switch to that now. So coming in at number one, no surprise to me, is Challengers, the latest movie from starring Zendaya. Great movie directed by Luca Guadagnino. Opening at 15 with 15 million. Now you hear 15 million, like, oh my god, that sounds so low. I mean, it's not one of those movies that was going to end up becoming a major blockbuster. But I did expect that a lot of the Zendaya fans were going to go ahead and support this movie. Told my story about it on Friday when I got a chance to see it a week ago from today, or a week prior. Um, the theater was filled with, I could tell these are the Euphoria fans. These are people who watch Euphoria. These are people who love Zendaya. So I was expecting at least them to go out in full force and support this movie. And they did for the most part. I was expecting maybe to see 20 million, 20 to 25. That was my prediction. But I did say it was going to come out on first. Now, my big surprise here is that I thought Civil War was going to drop to second, but that's not the case. Instead, Civil War actually dropped to fourth. Major drop off from last week. But I also feel like whoever wanted to see Civil War saw it already. So I didn't expect that movie to have a lot of legs. So we have Civil War dropping to fourth with 7 million over the weekend. Another new movie, Unsung Hero, which is a faith-based movie from Lionsgate. And one thing I have always said is that faith-based movies do extremely well no matter what the situation is. This movie chronicles, I believe it's a true life story of a family, and they formed a band. Yeah, and it stars, I don't even know who most of the people are in this movie. But it's of for King and Country film. So it is definitely one of those faith-based movies, and it comes in second. So one thing I always said that you could always rely on at the box office, as far as great performances, is anything religion related, faith-based related. Those movies will always do really well, no matter what. That and anything that is anime related, like those one-shot anime movies that are released through like Fathom events. Those movies are always going to do really well. So we have Unsung Hero coming in second with $7.7 million for the weekend. Godzilla Kong is in third, same spot it was in last week, pulling in 7.2 million. It's at 181.6 million domestically so far. Worldwide, let's see what the worldwide number is. It broke 500 million, so it's now at 519.3 worldwide. And I think it's going to remain within that same ballpark for the remainder of its theatrical run. I don't think it's going to go up or down any further than that. But it's still a huge hit, huge success. So, like I said the previous weeks, we are not going to see we're not going to see this franchise die down anytime soon. Like I mentioned already, Civil War dropped to fourth from first, 7 million. We have Abigail, the one true horror film that's out in theaters right now, dropped to fifth from second from last week, doing 5.2 million. I'm surprised that this movie is not doing as well as I thought it was going to do. Overall, domestically, it's at 18.7 million. 28.6 million worldwide. But I also don't think the budget was big for this movie. So I think it's still doing really well. Was it Guy Ritchie's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, dropped to sixth from fourth, 3.8 million. Huge drop, 57% drop from the previous week, only doing 15.4 million. I think this is going to be a major flop, another flop for Guy Ritchie. Uh, I said this already last week, especially when I reviewed this movie. I just think Guy Ritchie needs to take a break. He needs to kind of like chill out because he's been pushing out movie after movie after movie. Now he has this movie out. He has a new Netflix show that came out around the same time, and he has another movie that's coming out later on this year. So I think he needs to pump the brakes a little bit and focus on quality instead of quantity. Kung Fu Panda 4 dropped to seventh from sixth. Not a big drop, but 3.5 million there. 184.9 million. Might as well call it 185 domestically. Worldwide, 503 million. So it is extreme. It's doing extremely well, and that is another franchise that's not going to go away anytime soon. Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire, 107.3 million so far, pulled in 3.2 this weekend, dropping down to eighth, 187.9 million worldwide. I still think this is a major flop for the franchise. I don't think this is a good showing. It had to do at least, I want to say, 250 to 300 million to be profitable. It hasn't done any of that. And I don't think it's going to break any of that. So I think this could be a bad sign for future Ghostbusters movies. If they were to consider that, I still hold true to the fact that I think Ghostbusters should be now turned into a series and carry the franchise on that way. Dune Part 2 uh, dropped to ninth, pulling in 1.9 million. This is also available on digital already, so I'm not surprised that we're not seeing any more movement here. But domestically, 279.7 million. Worldwide, we're at 704 million. Like I said, I don't think it was going to break a billion, but it was going to get like around 800 million. But it looks like it's going to be a little shy of that too. And rounding out the top 10, we have Boy Kills World, the newest action film with Bill Skarsgård. Uh, not a lot of marketing behind this. I feel like not a lot of people know what this movie is. 1.6 million domestically. I was planning to watch this over the weekend, but I just didn't. So I'm planning to watch it this week because I still want to see a movie where Bill Skarsgård is doing action to kind of prepare me for what he could possibly be doing in the Crow movie coming out later this year. But this kind of reaction to this movie so far is not good. But like I said, the marketing behind this has been really poor. I haven't seen much of a push, and I think a lot of people don't even know that a movie like this exists. So there it is, 10. One thing to note too, there was I believe it was the 40th or 45th anniversary of Alien, and they had a 1 day release re-release of this in theaters, and for that 1 day it did 1.5 million. So that's something of note there to really pay attention to. I thought that did really well. And The Mummy pulled in 1 million for its anniversary re-release in theaters. We're going to see a lot of this stuff happening this year, and I think it's another strategy that studios are putting out there to just hopefully get more people out into theaters. This is a big year of anniversaries when it comes to movies. For some reason, 2024, so anything like 1984, 94, 2004, those are amazing years for movies in general. So we're going to be seeing a lot of anniversary re-releases. One big one that I'm going to be talking about later on that is not only a re-release, but it's also a remaster that they kind of worked on in celebration of the re-release into theaters. So that's going to be very, very big, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But one thing to really talk about as well, something of note, is that this past weekend was the 5 year anniversary of the release of Avengers Endgame. And I think talking about weekend box office, we should definitely talk about the box office of Avengers Endgame because that was something that we haven't seen since, to be very honest with you. This was a pivotal moment in not only movie theater history, box office history, but also a very huge pivotal moment for the MCU. We spent from 2008 all the way up until was it 2018, 2019, sorry. We spent that amount of time getting ourselves familiar and getting attached to a lot of these characters that we that some people grew up watching in movies in the Marvel universe. Now, for people like myself who are comic book fans, this was, I guess, a golden age of nerdom, geekdom, because we never expected or we never really thought we would have a chance to see such a thing happen. And, experiencing these larger than life superheroes that we grew up reading in comic books or maybe watching in animation form on TV. Never expected to see a live action adaptation of any of these guys, let alone full fledged storylines being realized in full form live action movies. What's going on? What's going on, Lee Davenport? Hello, you are a cool chicken, chicken, chicken. Bark, bark, bark. Thank you for the comment. Um, but it was a huge feat. I remember 2008 when the first Iron Man came out. I had a chance to see it with two of my very close friends, and we were blown away by what we just saw. Not only was Robert Downey Jr. like a perfect cast for Tony Stark, he like embodies the Tony Stark persona, especially if you were familiar with the character in the comic books. But just how well the movie was directed, the special effects, how how it was so amazing to see Iron Man in live action, and how we were also not expecting something like that, because you have to think about it too. Iron Man at that time was not a major MCU character really, or a Marvel character. Iron Man was just one of those guys that, as a comic book reader, he was always around, but in the general populace, he was not like a major star or a major character. You had Spider-Man that was always number one, Captain America, who's probably very close second there. The X-Men, anything X-Men related was also very popular, especially since they already had their shot in live action form in the past with the Fox movies, right? And it was just really, really interesting to see that giving the spotlight on this at times tertiary character in the Marvel universe was fascinating to see and done really well too. What's going on, Himanshu? What's your take on GTA 6? What take is there to have? It's not out yet. I don't like, what is my take on it coming out, or the trailer? I mean, the trailer looked interesting, but I don't judge games on trailers. I judge games on actual gameplay, and we haven't really seen any of that yet. So I don't really have an opinion on it. I'm sure by the time it comes out, it's going to be huge. It's going to be one of those games that we haven't seen in a while, that for those who really want to play it in next gen, whether it be PlayStation 5 or the PS5 Pro that might be out around that time, it might be a system selling title. It's going to be one of the first ones we got for this current gen that we're in now, because you have such a diehard group of fans for the franchise that they're going to want to do that. But I also feel like a lot of people are probably going to end up playing it on PC, which is easier for them to partake in. So I don't really have much of a take on it because I haven't seen or played it any kind of gameplay yet. So, but I'm sure it's going to be huge when it comes out. But yeah, so 2008, the release of Iron Man ushered us into this whole concept of the Marvel universe being realized on the big screen. Now, the first time, hold on, let me just first time. Now, the first time we got a real sense of what is to come here, as far as storylines concerned, as far as what we're building up to, was at the end of the very first Avengers movie. Now, I think for the longest time, we were just really excited that we were being introduced to live action versions of Iron Man, the Hulk, Captain America, right? Thor. Of course, we had Nick Fury being kind of like the mastermind behind the scenes. But as far as major threat is concerned, and of course, you could kind of say, well, Loki was a pretty big threat and all. But as a comic book person, you knew that wasn't going to be the long lasting threat. We all knew that there was going to be a big dude and it was going to be Thanos. But we didn't know how Thanos was going to be like. At the end of Avengers, that's when we got our first tease on Thanos. And I remember seeing that and getting goosebumps. I was just like, oh shit, we actually see him here. And he sounds phenomenal. Yeah, he looks like a California raisin with a scrotum for a chin. But, he looked awesome. I thought he looked great. And then the wheels started turning. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Because we didn't really get a lot of information as to what the overarching storyline was going to be like or what we are building up into. But I started thinking, and I remember saying to myself, like, oh my God, are we actually going to do the Infinity Gauntlet storyline here? Is that what we're going to build up to? And then, yeah, lo and behold, that was the main storyline for multitudes of phases, right? And then when Avengers Infinity War came out, that's when I knew it was time to buckle in. And that's when I knew that audiences who are not familiar with the comic books at all, that they're going to be in for some shit. And I'll never forget this because recently, before that movie came out, we had movies like Black Panther releasing for the first time, and people love that movie. That is what I would consider to be a generational movie, where you had generations watching the movie, kids, parents, grandparents, because it was huge for representation. It was the very first time we got to see that happening on the big screen in such a grand scale. So you had a lot of people really looking forward to this huge grouping of characters finally in a big, big movie that had real stakes behind it all. And I'll never forget the minute the snap happened, I was watching it in the theater with my friends, and I had an audible gasp coming out of my mouth. I was like, because I knew it was coming, but nothing prepared me for when I actually saw it in the big screen. And then I knew right away, I was like, oh shit, here we go. And once we started characters phasing out, oh, disintegrating into dust, and you heard people in the audience. This was like a sold, packed out theater, sold out. And you had people in the back screaming like, "No!" And forget it when Black Panther started to phase out. One of the funniest reactions that I heard, but it was a honest and true reaction. Someone in the back screamed out, "Oh hell no!" But it happened. They didn't hold back. And it was a movie that ended on such a sad, somber note. Very much like how Empire Strikes Back ended in the Star Wars universe. But the one thing that was at least interesting about Empire Strikes Back is that you still had a glimmer of hope because you had, the rebellion all gathered together. Lando's in the Millennium Falcon. It's like, don't worry, princess, we're gonna find him. We're gonna get him. Luke just got his hand reattached. And there was like a little glimmer of hope that, things were going to work out. In Infinity War, there was no such thing as a glimmer of hope at all. It was all dire. It was all sad. You had Captain America, who we've never seen really that emotional, just looked defeated, extremely defeated. And you had Thanos retiring off into, the whole garden that he dreamed of, watching the sunset with this huge grin on his face because he did what he planned to do, right? And we didn't know what was going to happen. We had to wait a full year for the next part. And Avengers Endgame released the weekend of April 26, 2019. And it blew the box office away. It opened with $357 million domestically. That's domestic, guys. You have to think about that. 357.1 million. And then worldwide, well, I don't have the worldwide opening box office numbers here, but when it was all said and done during its theatrical run, worldwide box office 2.7 billion. 2.7 billion. Domestically, it didn't crack a billion. 858, but it was phenomenal. Phenomenal. It holds for domestic box office the second place all-time domestic box office, right behind Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Crazy. Crazy when you think about it. Worldwide, it holds the second place right behind James Cameron's Avatar, the very first Avatar movie. And that movie got a little help because at one point Avengers Endgame was the top. It ended up becoming number 1 with its run. And then James Cameron said, "You know what? I'm not going to let that happen or remain like that for too long. Uh, so I'm going to re-release Avatar back in theaters." And when he did that, Avatar claimed the top spot again, just barely inching out Endgame. What's up, Saiful? Even Cap at the saddest wrote down, "See Star Wars." Okay. Thank you for your comment. But yeah, it was insane. It's insane when you really look at it. And to this day, we have not seen a repeat of this at all whatsoever. In both the impact on box office and impact on those who grew up watching the Marvel movies, the MCU. And I would say that it's been very hard for Disney and Marvel to kind of recapture those moments because it was the true final end to those characters that we invested so much time in watching, so much time in observing and speculating and reading up on those people who decide to read more about it behind the scenes and read the comic books and watch some of the animated shows. We they haven't been able to recapture those moments because I believe the first movie to kind of test that was Black Widow. Now, granted, it came out during pandemic time. People were locked down. No one was really going to theaters, so it's kind of unfair to judge all that. Plus, I feel like that movie came out way too late. That should have been a movie that came out like while we were still in the middle of the original phases. Then we got movies like Shang-Chi that kind of like got interest from people. Eternals was very divisive amongst fans. The real true movie to test things out was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And even though it did decently at the box office, it didn't really resonate with a lot of people. And I think it's mainly because Once you have something so huge transpire, huge buildup leading into it, years upon years upon years of buildup, and having it executed so well. Plus, we lost major characters. Iron Man is no longer with us. Captain America decided to stay back in the past to be with Peggy. So now he's like old man Rogers can no longer be Captain America anymore. So it was a lot of like passing of the torch, but I feel like a lot of people just didn't care enough. And every new character they keep throwing at us, there seems to be less and less interest. And I think one of the major mistakes that Marvel and Disney did, is that they didn't take a break. They kept that machine going and rolling. It's like a factory. They have to have a certain amount of movies out there. They have to have certain. Now with Disney Plus, it was mandated. It's already been documented and been already talked about. They had to have a new Disney Plus show, several shows a year. So it was just a factory churning machine. It was just like bam, 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 bam. And people got tired of it. People just lost interest for the most part because a lot of these new characters just, I feel like a lot of people were just saying, well, we don't have Iron Man anymore. We don't have our Captain America. So what's the point? We kind of wish they would come back. And Marvel and Disney, they even considered, should we bring them back? They haven't went full force about that, but they did have conversations about it. And I think that would have been a major mistake if they decided to do that. Especially now with the whole multiverse and time and all that, how it's so easy to now go into an alternate universe and say, oh look, here's Iron Man and Captain America. Look, they're still around. Maybe we could kind of reel them back in. I'm glad that they haven't done that, and I hope they don't do that at all. But I do feel like that once Avengers Endgame came out, that was the finality, the closure of the golden age of the MCU. If we were to call it like the golden age. Because we're not going to get to see any of that ever again for a long time. If any, if at all. There may be a renaissance, a Marvel renaissance. And I think Deadpool and Wolverine may help us determine how that's going to look like. Because that could be like the first step into what we could potentially see moving forward. I think once we get the X-Men and Fantastic Four into the MCU, that could potentially lead into the new MCU renaissance, and interest could be raised up again. It all depends on how they execute it. Because once you start, I mean, everyone, we already know X-Men, huge favorites for a lot of people, especially from back in the day. When the Fox X-Men came out, people love those series of movies. We all love the animated TV show, and now you could see the love is there still with X-Men '97 killing it right now, and they're doing such a great job with that show too. So people are hankering. They're like, we want to see X-Men. We want to see X-Men, and we'll get it, but it has to be executed properly, right? So I think once we see that, and Fantastic Four has been a family in comic books that I've loved for a very long time. Even though the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies with a younger Chris Evans and Jessica Alba and all that, they weren't great, but there was a part of me that liked them because, hey, at least we were getting Fantastic Four, right? But if done right, and I love the cast they have now, I really do. If it's done right, you're ushering in another fan favorite family into the Marvel Universe, which comes with very, very fan favorite villains in Doctor Doom, in Galactus. So this could very well be like the renaissance of Marvel when that happens. Seifel says agrees as Marvel casual kind of lost interest Is Pedro Pascal good as Reed Richards? We'll see. I think it's a good casting. I think it's a brilliant casting, in my opinion. He's a great actor. And we'll see. It's yet to be seen, but I trust that he's gonna do a great job at it. Will the chemistry be there with Vanessa Kirby and Joseph Quinn and Backrack? We'll see. You know, but I'm excited at least because at least we have good talent attached to it. I mean, I thought Pedro Pascal killed it in The Last of Us, and any movie that he's done, I thought he's done a brilliant job in it. So, as far as talent wise, it's there. We'll see how he portrays the character. But yeah, I do feel that Endgame, just to close out the conversation, was really the final closure of the golden era of the MCU. And everything that we got since has been, I don't want to call it filler, but it definitely feels it. It's been kind of a mishmash of stuff that doesn't matter or stuff that we don't know where they're going. I feel like the whole multiverse thing kind of, you know, fell through. I think they weren't expecting it to not get so well received as it did. It worked for Spider-Man, you know, when Spider-Man Far From Home, when that the whole multiverse thing, it totally worked for that. But that was just more fan service. I think everyone was just really excited to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield back. You know, is it what was it? Is it wait? It was Spider-Man: Homecoming, Far From Home, and was it No Way Home or whatever? The last Spider-Man movie. You know what I'm talking about? Home Alone again. But when you take out the fandom, if you take out kind of the if you take out the fact that we were treated to something from our past in that movie, the movie as a whole is okay. It's not the greatest movie. I enjoyed it. And don't get me wrong, I was one of those people that was jumping out of their seats and screaming when I saw Tobey Maguire show up, you know. And when I saw like villains like Sandman pop up and Doc Ock, I was like, oh my god, Willem Dafoe. But when you take all of that out and you just look at the core crux of the story, it was okay. It was good. But the whole multiverse kind of just blew up in their face, and I don't think they were expecting that at all. I think they kind of like they were hoping they were going to be able to ride that longer than they are going to do now. You know, and then what happened to all of these other characters that we've been introduced to? Shang-Chi, we haven't heard anything from Shang-Chi in forever, and at least I would say that he was a character that people were really interested in for a minute. Gone. We see a whole bunch of Wong everywhere, right? Or at least we did. Then we've been introduced to like Moon Knight. That kind of fell flat. We got Kate Bishop, who I like, but I am a little biased because I am a Hawkeye fan, and I love the Hawkeye comic books, and I thought Kate Bishop is a great character. So I think the more they do with her, because we're going towards the whole Young Avengers route, I think there will be more love there. I loved Miss Marvel. I think Iman Vellani is a fantastic actress. She has a lot of spunk and she has a lot of character. She has a lot of energy, and she's fantastic. But they don't know what they're gonna do with them yet. I feel like it's a lot of build up, build up, build up, and yeah, with the latest Marvels movie, we kind of got a hint that okay, now Miss Marvel is looking to recruit some of the younger people. Kate Bishop was the first one. I'm pretty sure they're gonna go to Catherine Newton's character from Ant Man. Who else is there? I don't know. But that's going to be probably for the next generation of fans who are going to be watching these movies and who are going to end up growing up with these movies moving forward. For us current people, current gen people who are fans but are disappointed now with the product, I think once we see X Men and Fantastic Four, that's going to help revigorate things for us and all. Seifel said, as Liam Neeson once said about what Marvel did, you don't want to dilute things. Yeah, it's true. And I think the focus on quantity hurt them. So I'm hoping now that they kind of reeled back and they're going to hopefully be really focusing on quality. I hope that's going to help usher in a renaissance for the Marvel universe. Iron Fist. Oh boy, Iron Fist. Yeah, let's not talk about Iron Fist because that was a huge miss on their part. You know, but I am excited for Daredevil. I can't wait for Daredevil Born Again. I love that they kind of went back to the drawing table and they redid the whole series, understanding that probably what they were doing is not right. So I'm really excited for Daredevil. And I'm okay with keeping Daredevil as its own universe. We don't have to tie him into the major MCU. It's not necessary. He could be part of the grounded team, and I do hope we get reintroduced again to Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. I heard they were going to possibly bring Iron Fist back. Who knows? We'll see. But Punisher, I can't wait to get Punisher back again, and keep it that way. Keep it the grounded MCU. I'm perfectly fine with that. Maybe you could have like run-ins with Spider-Man here and there because they're all in the same city. I think that'll be great. What's up, Armenia? I'm assuming you're from Armenia. Armenia in here. So yeah. So it was nice to kind of think about the effect Avengers Endgame has had on a lot of us 5 years ago. Normally, I don't pay attention to things that are like 5-year anniversaries. Um, but it is a significant thing to think about, especially in the current state that we're in right now with the MCU, with the movie industry. Um, and, one of the things I thought about over the weekend is that are we ever going to see any movie kind of do these numbers like Endgame did? And I don't think we're going to be seeing that for a very long time, if we ever do. So it was just nice to be a part of that history, nice to be a part of that moment. That opening weekend was bananas. Bananas. And I just don't think we'll ever get to experience that again. At least maybe in my lifetime. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, such an amazing feat there from the Marvel universe and for movie history, really. All right. So next topic I want to talk about this morning: Stranger Things. I don't know who out there are fans of Stranger Things. I'm a major fan of Stranger Things. Have always been. I know some people have kind of dropped off of Stranger Things for a bit. I've been hearing people not really that happy or excited for when season 3 came out, and then when season 4 came out. I feel like interest kind of dropped. Not me. I'm still crazy over Stranger Things. I thought season 4 was one of the best seasons we got since 2, or 1, I should say, since the original. But I loved what they did. I loved how cinematic it was. I loved the stakes because the stakes were raised tremendously high. Despite the kids looking so old now, it's kind of hard to pretend that they are high school students or newly high school students because they all look like such adults now. Um, so it's just kind of hard to push that aside. But story wise, it was fantastic, and the progression of the characters have been like fantastic. So I'm very happy and excited for season 5 to come out. this being the final season, the finality of the whole series. And it's unconfirmed, but it sounds like we're getting an idea of what the episode titles are and who's directing each episode. And again, take this all with a grain of salt. None of this has been confirmed, but it's just interesting to look at if any of this is actually going to be true. So we have here episode titles like The Crawl, The Vanishing of Blank Wheeler. Uh-oh. Who could that be? The Turbo Trap, Sorcerer, Shock Jock, Escape from Kamazats, sorry. And then episodes 7 and 8 still don't really have a title yet. But as far as directors are concerned, the Duffer Brothers are going to be directing possibly episode 1 and 2. But here's a name that really stood out to me. Frank Darabont, possibly directing episode 3 and 5. And you have Sean Levy, who's directed episodes in the past, back to direct episode 6. Plus, we should also mention that Sean Levy is a producer of the series. He's also the director of Deadpool and Deadpool Wolverine coming out. But Frank Darabont, for me, when I saw that name, I was extremely excited about it because Darabont is a very well-known, well-accomplished director. And the last thing we saw him do was that he helped create and start off the Walking Dead franchise on TV. That first season of The Walking Dead is probably still the only good and best season of The Walking Dead in its entirety. And Frank Darabont had a lot to do with that first season. Even though he parted ways with the creative people and there was some, conflict and all that, his name has always remained in the credits as one of the executive producers, one of the guys who helped start the entire series. And knowing what he was able to do with something like The Walking Dead gets me really excited as to what he could possibly be doing here with Stranger Things. And here on Dark Horizons, I'm just going to read a little bit here about everything that's happening with season 5 right now and about Darabont. So, a few years back, director Frank Darabont hinted that he'd retired from filmmaking, at least until the Duffer Brothers came calling. The Insider, which is the person who's dropped this major news, is reporting that Darabont is confirmed to have directed 2 episodes of the final season of Netflix's Stranger Things, which will reportedly clock in with 8 total episodes. Darabont, who helmed such films as Shawshank Redemption, The Mist, and The Green Mile, is said to be helming the 3rd and 5th episodes, which are said to be titled The Turbo Trap and Shock Jock. It's been suggested the Duffers have thrown Darabont a lifeline here. The filmmaker hasn't directed a movie since 2007. Since then, he's mostly known for creating AMC's The Walking Dead before leaving and engaging in lawsuits, which saw him ultimately settling for around $200 million. So, with all of that said and done, it's no surprise why he hasn't even thought of directing anymore because he's sitting pretty at the moment. The Duffers themselves are expected to helm at least 4 of the 8 episodes of the show's final season, including the premiere, finale, 2nd and 4th episodes. And then they kind of review what the episode titles are. Series producer and filmmaker Sean Levy will helm the 6th episode titled Escape from Kamazots. The 7th and 8th episodes don't have titles revealed as of yet, but it's not clear who is helming the 7th episodes, be it the Duffers or previously linked Dan Trachtenberg, which will also be amazing to see if that's to be true. The final season of Stranger Things is expected to air in 2025. However, there are rumors speculating now that with the way filming is going at the moment, they may potentially do what they did with the last season and do half of the season this year, half of the season next year. We don't know run times as of yet, but the Duffers did say that they weren't going to follow the same run times like they did in season 4, which we saw like hour and a half episodes, close to 2 hour episodes. So it was a little nutty. It sounds like they were going to go back to a more basic episode runtime. But with that being said, the speculation and rumors are we could possibly see some of those episodes releasing at the end of this year with the way that filming is going for this season of Stranger Things right now. But I love that it's a core group of directors who look like they're going to be involved in this season, with the Duffers being the majority of them. Darabont coming in. That would be fantastic to see if that's true. Trachtenberg would be amazing if that happens too. Sean Levy, of course, we've seen him direct episodes before. So I think it's going to be an amazing last season. Let's see what happens. I think it's time to end it because the kids are just way too old now. It's getting harder and harder to believe that these kids are that these adults, that these actors are young kids. Also, I remember Linda Hamilton is also going to be appearing in this season too. So I don't know what role she's going to play, but that's going to be a lot of fun to see that happening if that's the case. So yeah, so that's some Stranger Things news there that I thought was very very fun and interesting to talk about. Something that I wanted to talk about last week, but just didn't have a chance to. Next up here, we have some Marvel movie news. Going back to the whole uh, Marvel realm, and just like any movie, it is expected that there are going to be reshoots done, and it looks like right now that there are possible reshoots underway for Deadpool and Wolverine. So go back to this article here on Dark Horizons. Additional photography is built into every Marvel Studios' feature, and the same seems to be true for Deadpool and Wolverine, with scooper Daniel RPK via CBM Comic Book Movies, I believe, indicating that they are underway on the project right now. The reshoots are expected to last until May, and a bunch of cameos and surprises are quite likely to be filmed during this time. Whereas a film like Captain America Brave New World is undergoing some major overhauls in its reshoots this summer, from the sounds of it, Deadpool and Wolverine is having no such issues. Now, I did pre screen this article earlier, and this article may contain spoilers for the upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine movie. So if you're not interested in hearing spoilers, by all means, mute, leave, or come back, or mute and kind of turn the audio back on when you see the title of the topic change, because there are some interesting speculation on what cameos we're going to be seeing in Deadpool and Wolverine. So, without further ado, I've said it. You are warned. Possible spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. As for who may cameo, so far, Jennifer Garner's return as Elektra is the only confirmed returnee. Others have been rumored at this point include, get ready, Wesley Snipes, James Marsden, Famke Janssen, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Daphne Keane, Channing Tatum, Blake Lively, and even Taylor Swift. Another recent report claims to have shot down talk of a Tobey Maguire cameo. Sean Levy directs the film, which stars Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Emma Corrin, Morena Baccarin, Rob Delaney, Leslie Uggams, Karen Sony, and Matthew McFadden. Reynolds, Levy, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Zeb Wells penned the script. Deadpool and Wolverine opens in cinemas July 26th. So let's think about that right now. Ha ha ha. Could you imagine? Now, first of all, Jennifer Garner's return as Elektra is an interesting one, because where does Elektra fit into any of this? I don't know. But she was part of the Fox Marvel kind of universe, right? So I guess that kind of makes sense. It would have been interesting to see if Ben Affleck would come back as Daredevil, if that's the case. Well, okay, you have that. But can you imagine? Wait, was Elektra Fox, or was that Sony or New Dimensions? I don't know. Anyway, don't quote me on that, but still. Could you imagine if we saw Wesley Snipes back as Blade? That would be fantastic. and he still looks like phenomenal today. So he could totally pull it off. Now, I am totally on board if we saw James Marsden, Famke Jensen, you know, Stewart and McKellen, if they came back as their X-Men characters, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Professor X, and Magneto, I think that would be fantastic. Now, it could be possible that they could be coming back as just movie clips from the Fox universe. So that could be like a cop out way to bring them back if that was going to be the case. Because I thought at one point when we saw the whole new X-Men team show up at the end of Deadpool 2, when like you saw like the office open and then you saw like Beast there and you saw who else was there? Quicksilver was there. I thought that was all old footage, but I didn't know that they actually got all those actors back to just film that moment. So everyone you saw in there, that was newly filmed for that movie. So it'll be cool to see all this happen. Daphne Keene, it is suspected or speculated that in the trailer when Wolverine was saying like I'm not young anymore, kid, or whatever the case is, it's speculated that maybe he's talking to Daphne Keene at that point. I think Channing Tatum, since he was attached to Gambit for a very long time, I think it would have been hilarious if he showed up as Gambit just for a brief moment in this movie. I think that'll be great. I know the whole Taylor Swift thing that she could possibly be portraying Dazzler. Whatever. It is what it is. The thing is, you have to also think about it. Blake Lively and Taylor Swift are like best buds. They're like really close. So I won't be surprised. And of course, Blake Lively is married to Ryan Reynolds. So I won't be surprised if that does happen. But we shall see. But these rumors are nuts. So we'll see what happens with those reshoots. But again, nothing too crazy. I mean, reshoots happen all the time. It just sounds to me that maybe these reshoots will include, like the article hinted at, more cameos and more ways to kind of tie in what's going to happen in this movie with the rest of the MCU that we're going to see afterwards. I mean, is it too late to kind of just show the Fantastic Four show up now that we know who the cast is? I'm not going to say no. It could be a possible, like, one quick thing that we just see the family hanging out together and, Deadpool busting through. It's like, oops, sorry, guys. Don't know. It'll be amazing to see. And it'll be a great little way to kind of officially introduce them into the MCU. But I'm looking forward to this movie, and I still say that this is probably going to be one of the biggest movies of the year when Deadpool and Wolverine come out. Seifel says, "Can't imagine what fourth breaking gonna be done in this installment. Hope to be a banger." Yeah, it trust me, it's going to be huge. This movie is going to be huge, especially since it is one of the few, actually not even few, it's the only Marvel movie coming out this year. Um, and not counting the stuff that we're going to get on Disney Plus later. So yeah. So I'm excited for that. In other Marvel related news, Scarlett Johansson may be working on a Marvel project, and it may be a new series. So back here on Dark Horizons, Marvel has various projects in development stage at present, one of which they have confirmed but have shared zero details on is a top secret one with Scarlett Johansson. Last year, both the actress and Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige confirmed the project exists. The former told comicbook.com in June it is still happening but had stalled due to the strikes. Then in November, during the Marvel's premiere, Feige reiterated to Entertainment Tonight that we're doing a project with Scarlett. That's about all we had. It was unclear if this project would be live action or animated, and whether it be a film or TV series or a one off special. Now, Nexus Point News is claiming they've solved one mystery. The project will be a TV series for Disney Plus. They report that they discovered the information from, of all places, LinkedIn, where a creative executive at the studio added the following line on their resume: serve as an executive on the upcoming TV project untitled Scarlett Johansson series for Disney. How much you want to bet if you go back to that LinkedIn profile that it has since changed? Because you know that they're probably all over that when this news broke. Since then, however, the profile appears to have been edited. See, I told you, with Johansson's name removed. When such a project would be ready to go before cameras, it's unclear, as Marvel's production slate is quite busy for the next year or so. Filming is currently underway on Thunderbolts. Now, Fantastic Four begins filming in August, and Blade is set to finally begin filming later this year. Also on the way at some point are the Vision Quest series, the Armor Wars film, the Shang-Chi sequel, and a fifth Avengers film. All of this, Vision Quest, Armor Wars, Shang-Chi sequel, and fifth Avengers film. I guarantee you we're not going to be seeing this for a very long time. Very long time. Because think about it. What happened to Ironheart? Ironheart is a series that's already been filmed and it's just been on the shelf, hanging out. And remember, they were pushing Ironheart big time in the Black Panther sequel, only to never hear from her ever again. And I think there was some backlash too, because one of the biggest criticisms about the Black Panther sequel was that it felt too much like they were trying to prep Ironheart and premiere her new series when it was so not necessary. It felt too much like a promotion for this character. So I think that backlash may have hurt them. So that's why we should have already gotten this Ironheart series. The Armor Wars series, that's now a film, they had to make that change. So it's just very interesting, all the different ways they have pivoted, because of, I'm sure, feedback, backlash, all those things. So when they mentioned Vision Quest, which is a title that they've mentioned before a while ago, I'm not expecting that to come out anytime soon. That's going to be way down the line. Armor Wars, don't know. I doubt it. That we'll be seeing that anytime soon. Shang-Chi, I hope we get a sequel to that. But like I said, Shang-Chi is a character that I felt like they kind of just ignored for a while. And Avengers, yes, of course. Of course we're going to get an Avengers film. We already know that. They announced that already, right? But now they have to change it because it's no longer going to be the Kang Dynasty. It's going to be something, 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 Dark Side. I don't know, right? Because of the whole Jonathan Major situation. So we'll see what happens there. But it's just very interesting to read all about this stuff here. The last bit of Marvel / comic book movie news is that it looks like Kraven the Hunter is going to get pushed back release wise. So I'm here on the Hollywood Reporter. Kraven the Hunter and Karate Kid pushed back by Sony. So this was announced on Friday. Sony moved the villain-centric Kraven the Hunter to the prime winter spot of December 13, 2024. Originally, it was slated to come out in August of this year. Kraven steps into a date that was occupied by fellow Sony pick The Karate Kid, a crossover event movie starring Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. Karate Kid now moves to May 30 of 2025. So they totally pushed The Karate Kid back pretty much a full year, which is crazy. I wonder if they're doing that because we know that we're going to get the final season of Cobra Kai this year. I think later this year. So I think what they want to do is that they want to kind of have that marinate and simmer for a while until, and then give us a new movie with some of these characters involved. Because I think from what it sounds like, it sounds to me like they may be going a whole new route with the movie outside of Cobra Kai, the series. As far as Kraven getting pushed into December, this tells me that Sony is feeling very bullish about this movie for it to release during the holidays. I correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't one of the Venom movies come out during the holidays too, like in the wintertime? So I'm pretty sure they see a good, decent amount of success with that strategy. So I'm not surprised that they decided to do it here too. So that'll be really interesting to see how that's going to affect the movie as a whole. But I think having it released in December is smart. It's going to get a lot of people to have a chance to watch it during the holidays. The article continues to say the move comes after the sixth and final season of Cobra Kai, the Netflix spin-off starring Macho as his original Karate Kid movie character, Daniel LaRusso, was delayed due to last year's actor strike. See, I knew it. I called it. Sony pushed the new Karate Kid to allow it to follow Cobra Kai's final season. With the summer date also seen as friendly for all ages audiences, intended for. With an open holiday season 2024 date available, Sony opted to move Craven into Karate Kid's old spot. Yeah, so this was exactly what I thought it was the case here. Craven has been delayed multiple times, initially set for October 2023, but it was pushed by the actors' strike as the studio did not want to release it without actors being able to promote the film. In addition to Taylor Johnson, Craven stars Ariana DeBose, Alessandro Nivola, Christopher Abbott, Fred Heichinger, Heichinger, Levi Miller, Murat Seven, and Russell Crowe, and is directed by J.C. Shandor. Film is based on blah 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 blah. Its new December 13th date has some competition already, with Warner Brothers and New Line's animated The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim also opening that day. Yeah, but I think being having it open alongside an animated film is not going to hurt it really. I think it's gonna be fine because you're gonna have different audiences for those things. Karate Kid, meanwhile, centers on a teen from China who moves to the East Coast and finds guidance from a tough but wise mentor, or possibly two. It unites Machios' character as well as Jackie Chan's mentor character from the 2020, the 2010 film starring Jaden Smith. I really hope Jaden doesn't come back. I thought he was terrible in that movie. Let's see here. In addition to these movies, the studio also put two features on the calendar Friday. The Blumhouse horror feature They Listen from writer-director Chris Weitz will open August 30, 2024. The cast includes John Cho, Catherine Watterson, Havana Rose Liu, Lakita Maxwell, and David Dastmalchian. Oh, I love that guy. And Keith Carradine. And Sony and Legendary's live-action animation hybrid Animal Friends will bow August 15th, 2025. Ryan Reynolds, Jason Momoa, Aubrey Plaza, Daniel Levy, Lil Ray Howery, Addison Rae, and Ellie Bamber star in the R-rated feature directed by Peter Atencio and from writing duo Kevin Burrows and Matt Mider or Mitter. All right, so a lot of Sony news there, a lot of movements. So very interesting to see how that's going to affect movies like Craven and The Karate Kid. But it makes perfect sense to me, so I'm not surprised either way about all those decisions being made there. All right, we talked a lot about different things, and so I guess the last bit of stuff we'll talk about is just more generic movie news and something that I hinted on earlier during the morning, and I mentioned that a lot of studios are taking an opportunity to use movie anniversaries as a perfect outlet for them to re-release them into theaters and to get people to go back to theaters to watch them again on the big screen, or for many to see it for the very first time on the big screen. Um, Currently, right now, and I don't know how many more weeks are to go, but I believe every Monday of the month they were re-releasing the Spider-Man movies into theaters. So I remember seeing like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man's releasing in theaters, going into the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, and then eventually leading into the current Marvel Tom Holland Spider-Mans. So that's one thing they did. I talked about during the box office breakdown that The Mummy was re-released in theaters to celebrate its 25th anniversary. Alien released in theaters to celebrate its major anniversary of 45 years, I believe it is. This year, we're also going to be seeing major anniversaries of the original Ghostbusters movie. I don't know if they're going to be doing a re-release of that, but I'm pretty sure I won't put it past them that they won't think of that at least. But one set of movies that is being re-released in theaters this year is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Peter Jackson trilogy. But it's not just re-releasing. It sounds like Peter Jackson actually sat down and remastered them all so that it could be like in full blown whatever 4K or whatever the case is. So back here on the Hollywood Reporter, the Lord of the Rings trilogy returning to theaters, remastered and extended. Let's see here. Let's read this. So many ads popping up. All right. Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy is coming back again, but it's a bit different this time. Warner Brothers and Fathom Events are teaming to release the Oscar-winning fantasy blockbuster this summer. Hold on, let me just adjust something here. The version screened will be Jackson's extended editions, so you might want to get the jumbo tumbo popcorn for that, and also the versions that the filmmaker remastered in 2020 for a 4K Ultra HD re-release. The films will screen across 3 days at Fathom Events participating chains like AMC, Cinemark, and Regal. The screenings will start with 2001's Fellowship of the Ring on June 8th, then 2002's The Two Towers on June 9th, followed by 2003's The Return of the King on June 10th. You can get tickets now at the Fathom Events site, and I'm sure if you go to your AMC and Regal sites, you can get those tickets now too. This year will be a big one for Lord of the Rings fans. Prime Video's drama series, The Lord of the Rings Rings of Power, is expected to release its second season. There's no official premiere date yet, but a fall or winter release seems likely. Also, Warner Brothers' upcoming anime film, Lord of the Rings The War of the Rohirrim, which tells the story of Helm Hammerhand, King of Rohan, of Helm's Deep fame, who ruled over 250 years prior to the events of Lord of the Rings. New Films is set in the same universe as Jackson's trilogy, with Miranda Otto returning to voice Eowyn. So that's awesome to hear. The War of the Rohirrim is being released in December. So that's fun and fascinating. I like the fact that they're spreading it out 3 days, but that's still a huge commitment for anyone because the extended versions are like almost 3 hours long each. And I'll never forget one of the fun things I did. And of course, these are the kinds of things that you could do when you're younger. Back in 2003, when Return of the King came out, they were holding this special event in a lot of theaters across the nation. Here in New York, just a very small handful of theaters were doing this, where they were going to screen the extended versions of Fellowship, the extended version of The Two Towers, leading into the release of The Return of the King. So it was like a movie marathon. And this was during a time when movie marathons weren't like a big thing, um, weren't big at all. And this was one of the first times that they actually did something like this, where it was going to be like an all day event. So I still have very fond memories of me, my friends, and my ex at the time partaking in such a movie event. Now, here's the funny story. So, in New York, where I live in the city, there was only two theaters doing this marathon. And when it was all said and done, before we had a chance to really finalize who was going, who wasn't going to go, all that stuff, by the time it came down to us buying tickets, the city showings were all sold out, completely sold out. But we were really hell bent. We are like, we really want to do this. It's going to be a fun thing to do. So we found a theater in Poughkeepsie, New York, which if you don't know the landscape of New York, Poughkeepsie is more northern New York, and a drive from where we are in the city to Poughkeepsie is like 3 to 4 hours, something roughly like around that time. This is technically what most people who say upstate New York, when it's not really upstate New York. This is more like, whatever. Um, and we all decided, you know what, fuck it. Let's make it like a road trip. There was in total four of us. And around this time also, we all worked in the same company. So it was like an amazing bonding moment for a lot of us here. We all worked together. We all knew each other for quite a bit, and we're all doing something as a group, right? So I want to say, did we rent a car? We may have rented a car for it, or we used someone's car. I don't remember, but I remember we planned an overnight trip to go there. We rented a hotel that was very conveniently close to the movie theater, and we spent the night. I think we spent 2 nights there, or maybe just one. And it was also in the dead of winter, and it was after a major snowstorm happened. Major snowstorm. That the roads were very, very tricky. And I remember there we were driving at night, and the closer we were getting to Poughkeepsie, the crazy, the crazier the roads were. And there were moments where we were kind of sliding here and there. We were kind of joking with each other, like, "Oh, we're gonna die," and stop driving reckless. But it was nuts. It was bananas. Oh, what's up, AK? AKB in the house. He was one of my friends who was with me during that. Nice of you to be checking in on the vertical stream there. Uh, Good that each movie will be on each day. Still stinks that it's only a three. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Rochester. Oh, it's Rochester. 8-hour drive each way. So, oh, I thought it was Poughkeepsie. For some reason, I thought it was Poughkeepsie. And for some reason, 8 hours I thought was like three. But yeah, I guess it just shows you also how time is such a distant memory. Um, how everything just culminates into just craziness and wackiness of how this thing was. And plus, come on, this was like what, 20 years ago at this point? So it's quite a long time ago. But I'm glad that you have the memory there for us here. But I remember we finally made it to the hotel. It was late, and one of the funniest things we did is that we were not very familiar with like the 24-hour Walmarts, and we found one nearby, and we just went crazy walking around that place. But basically, the screening was the next day. We we basically all had to bring our own pillows and blankets because we knew we were going to be stuck in this one theater for, let's see, 3, 6, around 8 to 9 hours at least. And like I said, this is not something that was done at all before. Nowadays, you see like them doing the Star Wars movie marathons and the Marvel Cinematic Universe marathons, which I partook in, leading to the Age of Ultron release. So that was basically 12 movies in a row that I had to sit through, or kind of sit through and then sleep halfway through and all that. But I'll never do that again because it's just bonkers at this point. So we got to the theater. We all were told that the seats that we got were our seats. Period. They gave us tape so we could put our names on the tape, and we put it on the back of the seat. We had our pillows in hand and all that stuff. We were getting comfy. And what was also good is that they had brief intermissions in between each movie, and we were allowed to kind of leave the theater if we wanted to kind of stretch our legs, maybe get some fresh air, and then come back and all. So very, very cool. Uh, yeah, AKB remembers the marking of the seat, and if you took another seat, you would get kicked out. Yes, for the most part, I would say this whole thing went without any incident. Everyone was very they respected each other's spaces and boundaries, and everything was cool. Everyone had a good time. But my God, sitting through the first 6 hours of Fellowship and the Two Towers was quite a feat. Was quite a feat. And like I said, it was very brief intermissions in between the two movies. And I remember at least halfway through the Two Towers, I fell asleep. I was just like, oh my God. Plus, to be fair too, we were still kind of not recuperated from our drive at all. Um, but there was this level of excitement leading into Return of the King. The minute we were at the end of the Two Towers, when the big battle was happening, the blowing of the horn, all that, I felt myself get energized. I'm like, oh, here we go. Now we're going to finally get what we've been waiting for. And we're going to get treated to this awesome Return of the King reveal. And it was brilliant. It was fantastic. It's one of those movie going experiences that I will never forget for a very long time. And all of us had such a great time. They gave us little gifts as we walked out, which is a nice little film cell from one of the movies that we all walked out with, which is brilliant. Still have it today. Such a great little keepsake for all those things. And like I said, later on, I partook in other marathons, but you'll never forget your first. Just like many things in life. And this was definitely like a fun thing to experience. So if you do have a chance to experience watching these movies again on the big screen, I highly recommend it. You're not going to do it marathon wise. So if you want to dedicate 3 days in a row to watch these movies, especially if you've never seen them on the big screen before, I highly, highly recommend it. And also keep in mind too, you're going to be watching this with a lot of your fellow fans, so you're in good company. Like one of the things I loved about doing marathons, like the Star Wars marathon or the MCU marathon, is that you're in a group of people who are like-minded like you, and you're all fans. You have the audible reactions, you have the gasping, the cheering, all of those things. And that's one of the great things about the movie theater going experience that you don't get at home. You don't get to be there with your fellow peers, with your fellow nerds and geeks or whatever, your cinephiles, experiencing movies and moments like that. So if you have a chance to do it, I highly recommend it. I'm glad to hear that they're doing something like that. And yeah, it does sound like it's going to be a big year for Lord of the Rings. Not a lot of people talked about the first season of Rings of Power, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I just thought it came out at a really bad time, to be honest with you, because there were so many other series that came out during that time that took more attention away from the Lord of the Rings. But yeah, so I was really happy to read that this was going to happen there. And yeah, like I said, if you have a moment, if you have that time to go out into theaters, and what this is done during the summer, right? They're doing it in June. So kids are off from school, everyone's off from school. So it's a great experience to also have with your family too. Because I'm sure a lot of the younger generation never saw the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies in theaters, if they have ever seen them at all. So if they're into fantasy, if they're into those type of genre movies, then definitely check it out. I'm sure it's going to be a fun time to do during the summer when this is out. AKB saying it went smoothly. It was a fantastic experience with the rest of the theater people. But yeah, I've never done another marathon movie run like that since. Started at 12 noon, hour-long intermissions, then at midnight, Return of the King premiere. Great experience. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was fantastic. Really, really thoroughly enjoyed that moment. And again, with the special people that you experience it with, like even though, yeah, like I said, it's with my ex, who I no longer talk to for a very long time, it's still a moment in time that was captured that we all had a great time together. So I'm glad AKB is still here, that we could reminisce as we get older in age. We reminisce like two guys, old guys. Oh, remember when we did the Lord of the Rings marathon?
I'm gonna come.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun. All right, shut up. Stop applauding. Let's see. Other news wise here. Let's see. What else can we talk about this morning here? Let's see. Just running down the list. Already talked about Stranger Things. Oh yeah, we have some casting news for those who are excited for 28 Years Later, the long-awaited sequel to 28 Days Later, the infamous Danny Boyle movie, written by Alex Garland, starring Cillian Murphy, a very young Cillian Murphy. We have some casting news for that movie. So go back here on the Hollywood Reporter. 28 Years Later cast Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Ray Fiennes. Danny Boyle is directing from a script by Alex Garland, with the duo previously working on the 2002 hit 28 Days Later. Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Ray Fiennes are looking to take a bite out of 28 Years Later, with the actors joining the long-awaited sequel. Danny Boyle once again directing after helming 2002's 28 Days Later, which centered on a man, Cillian Murphy, who wakes up in the hospital to find the United Kingdom overtaken by a zombie plague. Civil War filmmaker Alex Garland, who penned the script, is back to write what is intended to be a trilogy of films for Sony. The original feature helped revive the zombie genre and already had a sequel in 2007, 28 Weeks Later, which only nominally involved Boyle and Garland as executive producers. I've never seen that movie. To be honest, it looked kind of bad, so I had no desire to see it, honestly. Boyle and Garland will produce the new film with Andrew McDonald, Peter Rice, and Bernie Bello. Original star Murphy will serve as executive producer. Comer has the period motorcycle drama The Bike Riders due out June 21st. Taylor Johnson is in theaters next month with The Fall Guy and also will be in Craven later this year. So that ties into that kind of announcement before, which they also mentioned here. Fines in recent years starred in The Menu, brilliant movie. If you haven't seen that movie, I highly recommend that, and appeared in James Bond pick No Time to Die. Comer is repped by, okay, we don't need to know about their agents and all that. So yeah, so that's fun, exciting news there. I'm very much looking forward to 28 years later because I'm just excited to see the return of the collaboration between Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. I think that combo is great when they work together. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to come up with this sequel here. That's going to be really fun and exciting to find out, to see how that all pans out. Evil Dead fans, the new movie has a new director, which kind of disappointing not to hear that they're not going to return with the previous director from Evil Dead Rise. But the next Evil Dead movie has its new director. So back here on Dark Horizons, Francis Galuppi, who did The Last Stop in Yuma County, has been set to write and direct the next Evil Dead at Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert's Ghost House Pictures. No specifics on the plot are available, and no other personnel involved has been revealed, as it's said to be early days, according to Deadline, who broke the news. The project is said to be an original story that Galuppi developed and brought to Raimi and team who sparked the idea. In a statement, Raimi said, Francis Galuppi is a storyteller who knows when to keep us waiting in simmering tension and when to hit us with explosive violence. He is a director that shows uncommon control in his feature debut. The film will follow on from the most recent film, the standalone Evil Dead Rise, which grossed over more than 147 million worldwide last year. The project is also not to be confused with Infested, director Sebastian Vaniek's new spin-off of the franchise, which is also in the works. All right, I'm confused by all that. So we're getting multiple Evil Dead projects this year or soon. Okay, that's interesting. Look, I was a huge fan of Evil Dead Rise. I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed that movie. If they could like carry on that same tone and feeling from that, then I'm happy for it. I'll be looking forward to checking it out. So we'll see what happens there. Aaron Sorkin, an interesting bit of news, may be writing a potential sequel to The Social Network. So that's interesting. The West Wing creator says he's working on a spiritual sequel to the 2010 hit that examines how Facebook's algorithm has impacted democracy. So I'm back here on The Hollywood Reporter. Aaron Sorkin, writing new movie, could serve as a sequel to The Social Network. The Oscar-winning screenwriter broke the news when he was asked during a live from DC edition of The Town podcast about how Facebook and social media have influenced democracy in years since his 2010 hit. Look, yeah, I'll be writing about this, Sorkin told Matthew Belloni and Peter Humby. I blame Facebook for January 6th. When asked why he blames the social media company for a pro-Donald Trump mob storming the U.S. Capitol, Sorkin replied, "You're going to need to buy a movie ticket." He's keeping it really under wraps, close to the vest, as to how he's going to portray this story here. Pressed if that means he's writing this idea specifically as a movie, Sorkin replied, "I'm trying. Facebook has been, among other things, tuning its algorithm to promote the most divisive material possible, because that is what will increase engagement. That is what will get you to what they call inside the hallways of Facebook the infinite scroll. There's supposed to be a constant tension at Facebook between growth and integrity. There isn't. There's just growth. If Mark Zuckerberg woke up tomorrow morning and realized there is nothing you can buy for 120 billion that you can't buy for 119 billion dollars, so how about if I make a little bit less money? I will tune up integrity and tune down growth. Yes, You can do that by switching a 1 to a 0. Sources close to Sorkin confirmed Friday that the writer is working on a social network adjacent screenplay, but emphasized the project is early days and there is no studio partner as of yet. Sorkin was previously working on a January 6th script that ultimately did not move forward. It's unclear if some elements from that effort will find their way into the script, but these are actually two different projects, one active, one not, that are being conflated a bit by some of the media outlets picking up Sorkin's comments. Sorkin has previously stated he hoped to eventually write a social network sequel about the dark side of Facebook, especially if David Fincher would return to direct. I think that I think what has been going on with Facebook these last few years is a story very much worth telling. And there is a way to tell it as a follow up to the social network. And that's as much as I know, he told THR in 2021. And in 2020, Sorkin told the Happy Sad Confused podcast, people have been talking to me about a sequel because of what we've discovered in the dark side of Facebook. Do I want to write that movie? Yeah, I do. I will only write it if David Fincher directs it. If Billy Wilder came back from the grave and said he wanted to direct it, I'd say I'd only do it with David. During the Town podcast, Sorkin was also asked The West Wing could still work as a television show today. The show premiered in 1999, and so much of the mail that we got would begin with, I'm a Republican, and I don't agree with the political positions that your characters take. But what they appreciated was the characters' sense of patriotism, the sense of commitment, he said. The show romanticized public service. I don't know that in today's climate you would get the I'm a Republican, but I think that they would likely see everything as an attack on what was happening right now. Sorkin also warned about the pro Palestine protesters at the Democratic National Convention in August might lead to the reelection of Trump. Blah, blah, blah. All right. I'm not going to go further into this because I try to stay away from politics as much as possible on here. But look, we could already see what side Sorkin kind of leans towards, which is perfectly fine. Let's talk about it movie wise. The Social Network was a brilliant film directed by David Fincher, written by Aaron Sorkin. And I love the way how it did kind of portray the meteoric rise and kind of rock star stardom of Zuckerberg and Facebook. If they were to do a sequel now, it would be very timely because Facebook has been under the gun for a very long time about its practices, the way it manages advertising, the way it kind of uses users' data without their knowledge. A lot of stuff happening. You know, we all remember the time Zuckerberg was in court and how that was televised and how everyone made fun of how dorky he looked. All those things there. Now with the algorithms, um, kind of favoriting um, drama and political tension, which is again, I'm not surprised, and I believe that 100% because if anyone still uses Facebook, I occasionally use it, maybe like once a week or whatever. I do get targeted things that I may not necessarily be interested in. But very much so is the case with YouTube. One thing that I've said for the very longest time, whenever someone ever asks me, is like, if what kind of YouTube channels do the best right now? And my first answer is drama. Anything drama related, that YouTube channel will blow up. And number two, if you are a YouTube channel that leans more on the right, your channel will also doubly blow up. Because that's just what happens. And those voices are much louder and very rampant. And you have a lot of people who are always looking for those voices on the internet. So it's no surprise that algorithms will favor stuff like that more so than anything else. So YouTube, Facebook, and the like. So if there was a movie that kind of like looked into all of that phenomenon happening, I'm all for it. I mean, I think that would, and leave it to Aaron Sorkin to be able to pen a script and story like that because this guy really knows the ins and out of the political world, I should say, and his knowledge of social media is phenomenal. So, and again, it would be amazing to see him team up with Fincher again to do something like this. And if they could get Jesse Eisenberg to come back as Zuckerberg, especially now that Eisenberg is much older, so he could kind of play like the older Zuckerberg role. Oh man, that would be fantastic. So that would be really, really interesting and fascinating to see overall. So yeah, so I found that article to be extremely, extremely interesting there, and I wanted to share that with you. Who remembers the movie 9 to 5? I'm going way back now, way, way back. There was a movie 9 to 5 that came out in the 80s. It starred Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton, and I believe a very young Melanie Griffin. Hold on, let me see. 9 to 5. I just want to make sure I'm accurate here in my assessment. 9 to 5. No, I'm wrong. Sorry. Jane Fonda. It was Jane Fonda, not Melanie Griffin. So you had Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, and Dolly Parton. Dabney Coleman was also in this, RIP. Brilliant comedic mind. He played the boss. And the whole premise of this movie was about three working women who get to live out their fantasies of getting even with their boss, who is just, lack of a better word, a bigot, a hypocrite, and a shithead, right? So, and each individual kind of had their own fantasy of how they would get back at their boss. And you could kind of see like some of them kind of teeter around the absurd or whatever the case is. We've seen movies like this already happen, like Horrible Bosses, which Jennifer Aniston was involved in too. So that's why I find it interesting that she's thinking of kind of producing a remake of 9 to 5 coming out. So I'm here on the Hollywood Reporter. Jennifer Aniston is bringing new life to 9 to 5. The morning show star is set to produce a It says here remaining. I'm pretty sure this article meant to say reimagining of the iconic 1980 film starring Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton, and Jane Fonda. Aniston will produce a project that is in development through her Echo Films banner alongside her partner, Kristen Hahn. Oscar winning Juno writer Diablo Cody will pen the script. She's also written movies like Jennifer's Body and Lisa Frankenstein, starring Cole Sprouse and Catherine Newton. Yes, I gave my thorough review on Lisa Frankenstein on the channel, so if you want to see that, you can check it out there. Friends Stars production company has produced projects like Adam Sandler's starred Murder Mystery 2, Dumpling Cake, The Switch. The Insider was one of the first to report the news that women would be producing the remake. Fonda confirmed a 9 to 5 sequel was in the works in 2018, with her, Tomlin, and Parton set to reprise their original roles. News of the potential sequel broke when Rashida Jones and Patricia Resnick had boarded the project as writers. However, the following year, Parton told Entertainment Tonight that the women had dropped that whole idea. I don't think we're going to do the sequel, she said at the time. We never could get the script where it was enough different than the first one, and that one turned out so good. The popular film followed Parton, Fonda, and Tomlin's characters as they take revenge on their sexist boss, played by Dabney Coleman. To this day, 9 to 5 remains one of the highest grossing box office comedies of all time. It even spawned a Rita Moreno starring sitcom in the 80s that ran for 5 seasons, as well as a 2009 Broadway musical. So there you go, 9 to 5. I think now is a good time for a movie like this to come back. I can see them working on a movie like this. Especially again with the whole Me Too movement and how things have portrayed itself in the media. I could totally see a remake like this happening and working out. As to who will be starring in said movie, I don't know. Like I try not to kind of use the old movie as the basis as to, okay, I think so and so is going to be a great Dolly Parton or so and so would be a perfect Lily Tomlin. I don't know. I think you just have to have strong actresses that kind of speak well to the generation today that can do a movie like this. Maybe a Sydney Sweeney or maybe like a Zendaya. I could see something like that happen. These people have to have influences because if you think about 1980 at the time, these three women had major influence in the pop culture zeitgeist. Dolly Parton was a huge star, still is, but she was big at that time, really hitting the charts with her country music and doing a lot of TV and movie. Lily Tomlin was a major comedic actress and comedian at the time. huge amount of comedy specials I remember coming out around that time. And Jane Fonda, Jane Fonda, Let's Get Physical, you know, hitting the charts, and mix that in with her acting. Very major influencers when it comes to pop culture at the time. So in order to make this work, you're going to have to do the same. You're going to have to cast actresses who have major influence in today's culture and society. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens if this continues to go forward. I hope it does, because I do think enough time has passed where I think a 9 to 5 movie can work. But like I said, when it's a movie about getting back at your boss, or anything that kind of covers bad bosses, we already got that recently with horrible bosses, which spawned a sequel, Horrible Bosses 2, right? And it's kind of funny how Jennifer Aniston was attached to both of those projects, and now she's apparently attached to this one here. All right, y'all. I think. Oh, AKB chiming in. Good point. Getting modern day icons is more important than getting Dolly Lily. Yeah, because I feel like we get so caught up in that. Like when we think about movies that are going to be remade, and we saw it recently with the whole Crow thing happening. When the teaser, when the trailer for the new Crow movie coming out this year, when that came out, I just saw so many people constantly going back and saying, "Well, this is not the Eric Draven I know. No one can ever top um, Brandon Lee's portrayal of Eric Draven in The Crow. We don't have to. Why can't we just try something new?" Right? Give something a shot. Maybe whoever is involved in the movie saw something in Bill Skarsgård and say, this guy can embody the spirit of Eric Draven. Okay, let's see. So when it comes to thinking of things like that, I want to avoid saying like, well, this person would be a great Lily Tomlin, and this person could be a fantastic Jane Fonda like character. No, let's just try something new. 1980 was a long time ago. Things that were hit big back then won't be as big as it is now. So let's look into who speaks to the current generation now, who could portray the proper characters for a movie like this. If you're putting the message out there about how sexist and how how cruel certain bosses can be, without without causing people to say, "Oh, this is going to be too woke," and hashtag me too again or whatever. It's just a current time, different time, and unfortunately, things like this still happen. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of message is being put out there. But if you're going to put a message out that is going to resonate with people, you have to have proper representation with whoever you cast as these characters. So I never thought I would be talking so much about 9 to 5 like this, but it's kind of interesting. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. And who's gonna do the song? Is it gonna be is it gonna be Taylor Swift redoing 9 to 5? Dua Lipa? Let's have Dua Lipa do like a hit 9 to 5 song, a club banger. I'll be down for that. Please do not cast Dua Lipa in this movie, though. No. Look, I love her as a performer, as a singer, but she cannot act. Not yet. Please, no. No, 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 no. All right, y'all. I think this is a great time to call it for the morning. I thank you all very much for tuning in and checking out the stream, spending time with me as I talk about all the latest news in pop culture and movie. Huge shout out to great engagement from the vertical stream this morning. Really happy to see. So don't know if you're all still here, but big shout out to Lee Davenport, Saiful Azray. I hope I'm saying your name right. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. Good old Armenia, representing Armenia. Big shout out there. Himanshu Singh. And of course, AKB, my bud. Great to have you on board here. And for anyone else who's been watching, but has been kind of lurking behind the scenes, you are also seen. I see you. Thank you for watching and supporting as always. Obviously, don't forget like or dislike depending on what you feel about this stream. Subscribe. I'll be back Wednesday, uh, 7 p.m. I'm thinking 7, 8 p.m. Eastern time with the morning after dark stream. We'll talk about whatever the latest thing I binge watched, anything I can review. Talk about all that stuff, and we'll just hang out and talk about whatever floats our boat. So, I hope you have a fantastic Monday. Make it a great one. Make it a great week. Start for your week. Hope I'll get to see you again later on this week. Until then, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. I will catch you all in the next one. Peace out, y'all. Bye bye.